Welcome back. Algebra 1 study guide for chapter 8. So we're going to keep going with factoring. Lots of factoring today. So we have a new method here. So number 7 says we have x squared plus 18x plus 81. So there are 3 terms. Whenever there are 3 terms, we're thinking about splitting the middle term. So whenever that is, first I look, is there a GCF? And there isn't. There isn't a number or variable that goes evenly into all of those. So that's when I can start with just writing out my big X. And then remember, what number goes on top is the A value times C. So 1 times 81, which is just 81. And then what number goes in the bottom is B, which is 18. So then I think, okay, what 2 numbers multiply together to get me positive 81 and add to get me 18? If you guys have your 15 by 15 multiplication chart that I posted with these types of problems, then you guys can use that. Like, see what 2 numbers multiply together to get me 81 and add to get me 18. And if you got 9 and 9, you would be correct. Now remember, I'm going to start by showing you splitting the middle term, and then a few of these I'm going to show you the shortcut. So if I split the middle term, 18 splits up to be, so x squared stays the same, and 18 splits up to be 9x and 9x. And then 81 stays exactly the same. So then I have 4 terms I can factor by grouping, just like we were doing in the last couple of problems. So x squared plus 9x, my GCF there is x, and I'm left with x plus 9. I bring down my middle sign, which is plus, and then I think about what number or a variable goes evenly into 9x and 81. And that number is 9. And I'm left with x plus 9. And so what I get, I'm going to write it over here, is x plus 9, because these are the same. These have to be the same for us to move forward. And then what's left? And what's left is that x plus 9, which is the same thing. So it's x plus 9 times x plus 9. Now remember, the way that we would write that, it's 2 of the same exact factors. So we can write that as x plus 9 squared. And that is it. That's your final answer. Okay, so number 8. Number 8, we have 3 terms. We look for a GCF first. There isn't anything I can factor out, so I start with my big X. With the big X, I'm multiplying A, which is 1, by 45. So 1 times 45 is just 45. And then my B term is 14. So I'm thinking, what 2 numbers multiply together to get me 45 and add to get me 14? So think about that. Look at your multiplication table if you need to. And then if you came up with 9 and 5, you would be correct. So remember, there is a shortcut. If you notice, like up here, my 2 numbers that I chose were 9 and 9. And so it was x plus 9 and x plus 9. So when A is equal to 1, and only when A is equal to 1 can we use this shortcut. So I can go, instead of splitting the middle term and doing these 2 extra steps, I can go straight to here. And I can say, okay, this is going to factor to be x plus 9 and x plus 5. Remember, you guys can always multiply this out to check your work. Make sure that you're doing this correctly. So that would be x plus 9 times x plus 5. And that is your final answer. Now, let's say you did want to split the middle term just like we did on number 7. That's totally fine. You should still get to the same answer. So whatever method you feel most comfortable with, then do what you need to do. Okay, so number 9, x squared minus 3x minus 54. So there's no GCF. A is equal to 1. 3 terms. So we're going to start by multiplying A times C. And write our big X. So A times C, 1 times negative 54. And then my B term is negative 3. So I'm thinking, what two numbers multiply together to get me negative 54 and add to get me negative 3? Now, I know that for one, my two types of numbers, one's going to be positive and one's going to be negative. Because the two types of numbers that multiply together to get me a negative have to be a positive and a negative number. And then I know the negative number is going to be bigger because the number that adds together is negative. So the negative number has to be bigger. So I'm thinking, what are my two numbers that multiply together to get me negative 54 and add to get me negative 3? Look at your multiplication chart, use what you've got to use, but those two numbers are going to be 9 and 6. So I'm thinking, which one is positive, which one is negative? So if this is a negative 3, the bigger number, negative 9 is going to be negative and 6 is going to be positive. And so then I can use the shortcut. A is equal to 1, so I can just go straight to x plus 6 and x minus 9. And that's my final answer. Okay, next one, factoring away. Lots of factoring this one. Well, I guess it is our factoring units. That would make sense. Well, okay, so we have 3 terms, no GCF. We know, okay, we're going to start with our x. On top, remember, is always going to be A times C. A times C, 1 times 12 is just 12. And then my B term is negative 7. So I'm thinking, what two types of numbers, before I even think about what numbers, I'm thinking what two types of numbers would multiply together to get me a positive, but add to get me a negative. And the only numbers that could do that are going to be a negative and a negative, because a negative times a negative gets me a positive, and a negative plus another negative gets me a negative answer. So both of my answers are going to be negative. So I'm thinking, now, what two numbers multiply together to get me 12 and add to get me negative 7? And that's going to be negative 3 and negative 4. So because A is equal to 1, I can go straight to the shortcut, x minus 3 times x minus 4, and that is my final answer. And we are moving forward. Just as a side note, just because I feel like we all need a break from factoring, but I started watching On My Block, which someone recommended to me, and it's been fantastic, and I'm already in season 2, so that's how my days are spent when I'm not making videos for you. Apparently, I'm watching other videos that I'm watching On My Block. So, sorry, I just dropped the calculator. Let's move on to 11. So if you guys need a good show to watch, On My Block is a good show, but I feel like I'm like late to the game on this one. So I feel like everybody already knows about this, and I'm just like, just learning about it. So yep, that's my life. Okay, so 11. We have 3 terms, no GCF, so 2, 11, 15, there's no GCF there. So what we're going to do is we are going to start with our x method, splitting the middle term. So with this, A, we recognize is not equal to 1. So that means we're going to have to split the middle term. We can't use the shortcut. But my process still stays the same. 2 times 15 is 30, and then my B term is 11. So I'm thinking of what two numbers multiply together to get me 30 and add to get me 11. Now, at any time through this, like, you guys should have done this study guide before you watched the videos. But before you guys are doing this, you guys should be trying all of these on your own and seeing how you're doing on these without me walking you through every single one of them. Okay. So we're thinking what two numbers multiply together to get me 30 and add to get me 11. And if you got 6 and 5, you would be correct. So remember, A is not equal to 1, so we have to split the middle term. So that means 2x squared stays the same, plus, and we can write 6 or 5 in any order. So I think what goes better with 2, 6 or 5? And 6 does. So I'm going to write 6x plus 5x plus 15, which makes sense because 5 goes better with 15. So all we did here was just split up 11 into 6x and 5x. And now I have 4 terms, and now I can factor by grouping. So 2x squared and 6x is my first group, and 5x plus 15 is my second group. So 2x squared plus 6x, what factors evenly out of 2x squared and 6x? Well, we know 2 does. 2 goes evenly into both 2 and 6. And then do they have a variable in common? Which they do. They have an x. And then what's left? So 2x squared divided by 2x is x. And 6x divided by 2x is 3. I always bring down my middle sign. And I think what number goes evenly into 5x and 15? So I always look at the smaller number and think, does 5 go into 15? And it does, so I can factor out a 5. 5x divided by 5 is x, and 15 divided by 5 is 3. Are these the same? They have to be the same. If they are not the same, we've done something wrong. We've got to go back and check our work. They are the same, so we can write that as 1. And then what's left? So what's left is 2x plus 5. And that's my final answer. You guys can write it in any order, but whatever order you choose is fine. X plus 3 times 2x plus 5, or 2x plus 5 times x plus 3 is fine. And that goes for all of these. Okay. 3x squared minus 32x plus 20. So I'm thinking, okay, A isn't equal to 1. There isn't a GCF, so I start just like I've been starting out with all of these. I write my big X. And then on top is A times C, so 3 times 20. 3 times 20 is 60. And then B is B goes in the bottom, so negative 32. So I'm thinking, what two numbers multiply together to get me a positive, but add to get me a negative? And that's going to be a negative and a negative. And I'm thinking, okay, so what are my numbers that are going to multiply together to get me 60 and add to get me negative 32? Well, if you have a hard time with these, because this one isn't going to be on your 15 by 15 because it's like one of the numbers is bigger than 15, you guys can always go and use your calculator. So if you use your calculator, then that's fine. Like, you can go through and think, okay, well, what about, we know that 2 goes evenly into it. And then I'm like, oh, actually, that works out, 30 and 2. So I always kind of start when I'm in my calculator with the smaller number that I know goes evenly, and then I kind of work my way up bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, so then I can split my middle term. Negative 30 times negative 2 is positive 60. Negative 30 plus negative 2 is negative 32. We're good. So I split my middle term. 3x squared stays the same. negative 32x is going to be split between the two. Negative 30, does that go better with 3 or does 2? I'm going to put negative 30 with it. And then negative 2x plus 20. So my middle term just got broken up into those two terms. That's the only thing that changes here. And then we can factor by grouping. 3x squared minus 30x is my first term, and 2x plus 20 is my second group. So I think what factors out of 3x squared and 30x? Well, 3 goes evenly into both 3 and 30, and then they both have an x, so I can factor out a 3x. 3x squared divided by 3x is x, and 30x divided by 3x is 10. And then I always bring down my middle sign minus. So that means that my signs are going to change in here. So I think what number goes evenly into 2 and 20? And that's 2. And then I look at negative 2x and 20. They both don't have an x, so that's it. So negative 2x divided by negative 2 is positive x, and 20 divided by negative 2 is negative 10. So I make sure, are these the same? X minus 10, x minus 10, we're good. Those are the same. So I write that as 1, and then what's left? 3x minus 2. So remember, you guys can write your answer any way that you want. Whatever parentheses can go in front. Okay, last one on the page. So 6x squared minus 17x plus 7. So is there a GCF here? There isn't. There's 3 terms. So we start by writing our x. So our x, we notice, okay, a isn't equal to 1. So a times 7 is 42. And then my b value is negative 17. So I'm thinking, okay, what 2 terms multiply together to get me 42 and add to get me negative 17? So again, that one's kind of like, I'm not exactly sure. So I go to my calculator and I think, okay, what about 2? Well, 21 minus 2 doesn't get me negative 17. And they have to be both negative. So it'd be negative 21 minus 2, which doesn't work. So let's go up and go to 3. Okay, 3 and 14. Negative 14 times negative 3 gets me positive 42. And negative 3 plus negative 14 gets me negative 17. So that's those are my 2 numbers. And so from there, I can split my middle term. So 6x squared stays the same. And then I think, what goes better with 6x squared, 3 or 14? I think 3 does. And then I'm going to put 14 with 7. So now I have my 4 terms. I can factor by grouping. So 6x squared minus 3x, I can factor out a 3x. And I'm left with 6 divided by 3 is 2. And x squared divided by x is x. And then negative 3x divided by 3x is just minus 1. And then I always bring down my middle sign. And then 14x plus 7, what number goes evenly into both 14 and 7? I look at my smaller number. Does 7 go into 14? It does. They both don't have an x. So negative 14x divided by negative 7 is 2x. And 7 divided by negative 7 is negative 1. Are these the same? They sure are. So we have 2x minus 1, and then what's left? 3x minus 7. Again, any way you guys write it, if you write it like this or if you write it like this, both are fine. Like, both would get you still 100%. They're both fully factored. Everything is good. So I'm going to pause at this point in the video. I'll pause on this page, and then I'll keep going on the next page on the next one. Again, if you guys have any questions throughout any of these, please come to office hours. I'd be happy to help you there and go through some problems with you. And that is that. I hope you guys have a good day. Come back, watch the videos, do what you need to do. Go get a snack. I don't know. Watch an episode of On My Block. Do what you need to do, and then come back. Okie dokie. Bye, guys.